But after sort of the Christmas period, like I say, this like lockdown kicked in, more severe lockdown. And like there was no indoor volleyball. There was like no music at Budka or any weird music place. So I guess what happened was like we hit this like weird winter lockdown vibe. And we still, as a crew, tried to keep connected. Like I was giving Sergey English lessons. And on the weekend, the second lesson, we'd go for a big hike up in the hills. It was a very snowy winter in the second year. So I probably have some photos of that, walking his dogs in the snowy hills above the city, like Turtle Lake side. And I was still like, you know, hanging out with Shanae and Pele and Ross. Sometimes we go to each other's house and watch movies and things like that. But myself, like I would do like city walks. Again, like it's very important for me to frame the city, but kind of like understand the mechanisms of the city. And Tbilisi is like a maze, not only because of the weird valley angles, but just because it's an old city. So there's so many weaving and turning things in Tbilisi. But I fell into kind of like a routine of a couple different walks I did. One is called the Double Bridges Walk. And I'll show you on the map kind of how that works. And maybe I'll show you some views, although probably from summer, not in winter. But I remember in that during that winter, what I would do is a lot of times is before I had to teach in the evening online at International House, I would go down to the bridge and the birds would do this murmuring. And it was like amazing. It was like this purple light. You're on this bridge and there's like kind of ugly gray, but purple light as it reaches sunset, sort of golden hour time, but golden hour in winter. And these birds murmuring above it. It was so cool. And then the other one that I really got into doing was this climbing monument hike. So again, I'll probably show you photos when it's summer, not when it's winter. But the climbing monument, you can kind of see it from anywhere in Tbilisi. It's on this little hill rise by this neighborhood called Lotkini. And it's this like vertical column that I think was supposed to be a monument to something that they didn't finish. It's very tall. But what has happened is that young climbers have installed like grips, like for climbing inside there. So you can climb up the whole interior of it. It's like super cool. But for me, in terms of framing this city, because it sits on the top of one of these like mounds within the internal valleys of Tbilisi, it's always a marker that I can see. And so I would do a loop from there down to Marginishvili, which is a neighborhood that I'll probably explain in a bit. But yeah, so that was a cool walk as well. And another marker that we'll get to later on, probably not in this video, but maybe, is there's this place called Patara Lilo that's way out on the brown side of Tbilisi, on the edge of the city, way out there. And they have like a weathering monitor that looks like a mushroom or a soccer ball, this white thing. And I also was very attracted to go check that out. And later on in the second year, I did go check it out. And maybe I'll force some videos into this video from that, but I'll probably have more to explain on that later because there were some pretty cool walks that I did. I'm sure I'll get there. So we hit this winter phase where everything's kind of dead or whatever. But then, you know, April comes around and we can play volleyball outdoor again because the lockdown's mainly for indoor things. So we couldn't play indoor volleyball, right? So like I mentioned, Dima kind of was exiting the volleyball crew at this point. He wasn't so interested in playing volleyball anymore, but he was still in the mix. So I ended up kind of becoming Mr. Volleyball. I didn't really want to, but like I'm a pretty organized guy. I'm a teacher. And like I had, during the first year, been fairly involved in the volleyball scene. So yeah, I'm not going to say people asked me to, but there was some sort of like talk like that in our Telegram chat. Like, hey, come on, boss man, do it. So anyway, so I became kind of the volleyball boss and organized volleyball. And we were playing at two different locations, Turtle Lake and Marginishvili. And I mentioned Marginishvili earlier, so maybe I'll explain Marginishvili now. Marginishvili is one of the older neighborhoods. It's across the river from where I live. I live in Sabertalo. I lived in Sabertalo. And it has this really cool avenue that's really, really nice. And then as you get down, kind of further down and above it, there's some really cool sort of like older buildings. But there's also, if you continue along the avenue, it narrows to just a pedestrian section. And it's all sort of like Arabic or Turkish, like hookah places. So almost all Tbilisians, they're not a fan of that type of thing. And most Russians aren't either. So I never got to go to a hookah place. But they're actually pretty nice. And I always kind of wanted to. So that's at the end of Marginishvili. I'll probably show you some pretty cool like Art Deco outside the TBC building in Marginishvili near the court as well. So we're playing in two courts. Turtle Lake, Marginishvili, everything's good. Volleyball's in full mode again in summer. Everything's good. But Pele, I guess, is not happy with New School. And I mentioned in the first video, Pele's name is now Adam, but when I knew him, he was Pele, so we'll go by Pele. Was not happy at New School, so he made an exit strategy in May. So he left in May before the end of the school year. And my boss at International House talked to me. He's like, can you take over for Pele at New School, and we'll keep you on at International House. So it was a bit of work for May and June, like heavier workload. But my bigger fear was like, oh, I'm going to lose my job at International House because of cutbacks with COVID and everything like that. And I'll end up working at New School, the high school. And in my mind at that time, I was like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I think that the environment at New School is nowhere near as sort of like positive and warm as International House. But anyway, I started working at both in May and June to cover for Pele. And that was fine. Like the first bit was great. Like I actually enjoyed both. Everything was good. I was really busy. Everything was cool. And then summer hit. And the volleyball crew is still like pretty well connected. I mentioned Dima kind of drifting away, but still socially being there. But like, yeah, the crazy energy we had in the first year wasn't to that same level. We still did really cool things. Like we had a barbecue for Sergey's birthday, and another time we had another barbecue for something else on Turtle Lake. And we went to this day at Dana Park during lockdown. You can see me wearing my mask or whatever. But not quite the peaking level of the previous year. But I was still, my life was very full, felt very super connected, hiking with Shanae, Ross, and also having Sergey is sort of a closer friend now, and the volleyball crew, and this guy Luca, who I met at the beginning of my volleyball experience way back in the day, kind of entering more and becoming closer friends now too. So everything's good. Not quite the same peak level as the first year, but everything's really good. Life is great. Summer comes and Ross and I start doing a few hikes. I do some solo hikes to explore further out in Georgia, like not as far out as the Black Sea, but sort of day trips. So Ross and I do a day trip to Tbilisi, which is this amazing cave zone, like these natural caves that people lived in. Just awesome. And so I've got some photos and videos of that. We also went to Gori, where Stalin came from. We went to Stalin's little museum and things like that. Came back at the end of the day. So like a day trip to Gori. On my own, I also did a day trip to Borjomi, which is kind of this forest area, very green in the middle of the country. And I went to the Central Park there and all these different parks, but the Central Park itself was amazing. And there's this free water that they have coming out of the ground. And it's like got this like sulfuric or this like healing minerals in it. I remember being like, dude, I don't know if I should do this because of my stomach, because like my stomach's super sensitive. I just took a little cup and I kind of walked away and I felt good. So then when I came back by that fountain, I got the lady who kind of works there. You get it for free, but she helps you to fill like two 2-liter water bottles up. And I drank it all the way home. And it tastes almost like it's got like sodium bicarbonate in it. Like it's very kind of alkaline, but it actually worked really well with my stomach. But coming back from Borjomi, I had to get to this city called Khashuri to take a train back. And so I had to hitchhike to get to Khashuri. It was cool. Like in Georgia, they say hitchhiking, everyone will pick you up. I had to wait a little bit, but then these teenagers picked me up and we were like driving to Khashuri in their little car, listening to like rap music. They can hardly speak English, but it's like really cool. So I get to Khashuri, I eat something, and I'm like waiting for the train in Khashuri, which is a very small city. And I'm like, dude, is this train gonna come? Because it was like almost like a midnight train or something like that. Finally it came and I got back to, very old train, I got back to Tbilisi, everything was cool. And then another one I did, I went out to Kutaisi. I'd already been to Kutaisi when I landed in Tbilisi, but I went out there to check it out, and there's a place called Skaltubo, just north of Kutaisi, like 20 minutes north, that has all these like abandoned bathhouses that the Soviet people during the Soviet Union, the rich guys from Moscow, the powerful leaders, would come down to Skaltubo and have their little vacation, natural sulfuric water, like warm water, thermal water, like bathhouse situation. But now it's totally abandoned. So that was amazing. I have probably really cool footage of all this abandoned, ruined stuff. That was so cool being there. And it was so hot too. Like, oh man, that was an amazing day. And Kutaisi itself, I checked it a little bit. That was cool. I'd have a chance to check it out more later on in the years. Or actually, no, this summer, actually, I'm talking about, I actually checked it out more. So we did those ones. And then Ross and I decided to do a hike. Actually, before I get to this, let me say something else.